What is going on, everybody? Tunde again from Ceasar Graphics. Welcome to my channel. If you're new, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and remember to ring that bell so you will be notified when I post my tutorials. Today, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to make church posters, and I'm also going to be sharing some of my tips with you where coming up with church poster is concerned. So, without any further ado, let's jump into today's tutorial. Are you looking for ways to make your church poster arrest your client or your audience? Have you considered abstracting the main points, because these can give life to the project? Make sure it's clear and visual arresting. There are times using picture may not be necessary. Abstracting just the focal point may be the solution to the project. A message that doesn't first stop the reader won't be read. Okay, so let's create a new document. So I'm going to click on file and I'll select new. So I'm going to give it a name. I'll call this, okay, and I'll make my width 800 and my height 800. Then my resolution is going to be 100 because I'm going to be adding less effects to my project, and my color mode is going to be RGB. Okay, my background is going to be white, and I'm going to click on the create button. Okay, so if you need the exercise file for this project, the links are in the description section. So I'm going to bring in my background. So I'll drag that and drop here like so, and I'm going to scale this real big. I'll go to image adjustment, select desaturate here. Okay, and I'll go to filter gallery, and I'm going to use the paint daubs filter here, and I'm going to click on the create button. So I'm going to scale this real big a little bit more. So I'm going to make it bigger, and I'll push this down, showing it somewhere around here. So the next thing I'm going to do is to bring in the picture of my characters. So I'm going to drag that and drop here like so, and I'm going to scale this big, and I'm going to rotate this. Should be here. All right, and I'm going to bring in the picture of the guest artist. So I'm going to position this here and scale this down, and this should be behind the picture of the pastor. I'll make it bigger a little bit more. I don't know, scale this big, position this somewhere around here. All right, so I'll shift drag the two layers and I'll push them down just like so. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to add depth to the image of our characters. So, but before I do that, I'm going to give my layers names. So I'm going to call this master, and I'm going to call this guests. I'm going to make duplicate of the two layers, and I'll hide these two layers, and I'm going to merge these two layers now. So I'll hit Control E on my keyboard to merge the two layers. So what I'm going to do now is I'll go to adjustment tab here, and I'll bring out the black and white adjustments. All right, so I'm going to move this down a little bit so you guys can see my layer panel clearly. So I'm going to click on this icon to apply it to just only that layer, and I'll change my blend mode to soft light. All right, and I'm going to move this up like so, and I'm going to drag this down, sorry, and I'm going to move this up just like so. So then I'm going to reduce the opacity. All right, just a little. Okay, and yeah, so the next thing I'm going to do is to bring down the strength of the color on the face of my character. So I'm going to bring the hue, saturation, and I'm going to click on the same icon again, and this time I'm just going to move this down just like so. Now it's affecting the outfit of my characters, but so I don't want that, so I'm going to hit the Control I on my keyboard to reverse the layer mask. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to zoom in. All right, and I'm going to bring out my brush tool, reduce the size of my brush, and make sure that my foreground is set to white. All right, so as to bring out the hue on that layer. So I'm going to just brush the face of my character just to bring out the hue on their faces. Okay, so this is good. So what I'm going to do again now is I'm going to create a new layer, and I'll call this lights. Okay, so the reason why I'm doing all this is because the title of the design is more of celebration. Okay, so one of the ways I can apply this to the project is by making the project look brighter. So when the project looks brighter, it makes it more lively, it makes it more interesting. It gives it this happy feel. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to achieve here. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to hold on control and click on the layer of the two characters. I'm going to call this 2ch, which is two characters. And I'm going to just zoom in and go to select and select modify and select expand. So I'm going to just make my expand 1 pixels and I'm going to click on OK. I don't like the fact I'm seeing the marquee of the characters. So what I'm going to do is to hide it by holding Control H on my keyboard. All right. So I'm going to move this up, and now you need to switch your foreground to white. So I'm going to click here to switch to white, and I'll turn on my transfer option here. I'm using a graphics stabilizer. Now, if you don't have a graphics stabilizer, simply turn down the level of your flow. All right, you can use something around 15%. All right, so as I apply my brush, now you see I'm having those light effects on the body of my character. Okay, so I'm just going to do the same thing somewhere around here. Okay, now it's always good to do this when working on church posters, because doing this will make your design look rich. All right, so I'm going to just zoom out now, and I'm going to reduce the opacity of this just a little bit, and I'm going to create a new layer again, and I'll call this lights. Okay, so but this time I'm going to use the eyedropper tool, okay, to sample a color from the body of my character, and I'll bring out the brush tool, and this time I'm going to turn off the transfer option, and I'm going to increase the size of my brush. Then I'm going to just click somewhere. Oh, excuse me. Now, so I'm going to bring out the marquee on my screen again by hitting Control H. Now you see we have it back, and I'm going to hit Control D on my keyboard to deselect. And now if I click, you see I have my brush outside the frame of my character. So I'm going to bring out the free transform, and I'm going to scale this big and position this somewhere around here. And I'll change my blend mode to screen. All right, now you see we're having this light effect on the body of our character. So this is the before and this is the after. Now I'm going to make a new layer again, and this one I'm going to call it yellow lights. I'm trying to play with complementary color harmony here where I'm using blue and orange. So I'm going to change this to orange. All right, so it's going to be orange, and I'm going to select the brush tool again, and I'm just going to click once, and I'll bring out the free transform, and I'll scale this big and position this somewhere around here, and I'm going to click on the screen blend mode again, and I'll use my move tool to just move this to the position where I want it to be. So I'm going to move this somewhere around here. So this is the before and this is the after. So I'm going to move this down just a little bit. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is to put this in a group. So I'm going to shift select the layers, and I'm going to hit Control G on my keyboard, or Command G for Mac users, and I'll call this ministers. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer again. We still need to create more lights, so I'm going to call this orange light again. So I'm going to select the brush tool, and I'm just going to click once and scale this big just like so. All right, and I'm going to change this to screen again. Scroll this down, and I'll make a copy of this. I'll move this here just like so, and I'll make a copy of this again, and this one is going to be very, very big, just like so. So I'm going to scale it bigger just like so, and it will be somewhere around here. Now you see we're beginning to have that bright feel on our project, but for this one I'm going to make it a little bit white. So I'll use the level adjustment to change this. So this is good. So I'm just going to position this somewhere around here. So the next thing I'm going to do is to bring out the color lookup. Now the reason why I always use color lookup is to help me blend the color on the face of my characters, all right, just to make them have uniform color feel on their faces. All right, so I'm going to use the late sunset 3DL, and I'm going to make my opacity go down to something around 38. Yeah, so what I'm going to do again now is to add hue saturation just to boost the color of their outfits. All right, so I'm just going to crank this up just like so. I'm going to bring out the curve adjustments. So I'm going to click here and I'll push this down. All right. Now I'm going to reverse the layer mask of the curve adjustment by hitting Control I. All right. So I'm going to select my brush tool. Okay. And I'm going to make sure that my foreground is set to white. And I'm just going to make this side of the body of my characters darker. We are going to take this to camera raw, all right, just to give it more life. Okay, so I'm going to select the first layer and I'm going to hit Ctrl Shift Alt and E to stamp visible of all the layers. So I'm going to go to filter and select camera raw filter here. I'm going to increase the exposure. All right, so for the contrast, I'm just going to just dial that up a bit so as to bring out the details on the faces of my characters. And for my highlights, I'm going to push that down so as to reduce the highlights on their faces and on the background. Okay, so for the shadow, so I'm going to reduce that a bit. Okay, so for the texture, I'm going to push that up just to add more contrast to the pixels. Okay, and I'm going to scroll down. So I'm going to use curve to add more depth to my project, just like so. So all right, so I'm going to go down to my sharpen. So I'm going to add more details to my project now. So now let's go straight to the HSL. So for the HSL, I'm going to start with the saturation and I'm going to increase the strength of my orange on my project just like so. All right, and the effects and increase the grain just to add more noise to this. And I think I'm okay with everything and I'm going to select OK. So now you see this is the before and this is the after. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to bring in my text. Okay. But before I do that, I need to create my guides. So I'll go to view and select uh, new guide layout. Okay. So I'm using the column grid layout for this project. Okay. And I'm using 4 columns and my margin top is 40, left is 40, bottom is 40, and right is 40. Okay, so I'm going to click on the OK button and I'm going to start with the title of the project. Okay, so like I said previously, that abstracting the title of your project is going to create visual interest. Okay, so I'm going to just type fitness, all right, and I'll add space. So it's time for us to make our title abstract so as to create that visual interest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to fights back. That's the name of the font. Okay, this is right here. So I'm going to click on it and I'll scale this big. And this should be above all the layers, but we need to clean up our layer panel. So I'm going to put this in a group. So I'll call this info. So what I'm going to do is to bring in the picture of my background, which you can also find the link in the description section. So I'm going to drag this and drop here just like so. All right. And I'll bring out the free transform and I'll flip this and make this bigger. All right. So what I'm going to do is I need to put this in the text, which is the title. So I'm going to hold down Alt and position my mouse in between the background image that we just drag in with the title and click. to put the image and the text. So I'm just going to position this somewhere around here. Blur this. So I'll go to filter, blur, and select Gaussian blur. All right, and move this up a bit, and this is okay for me. Okay, so I'm going to move this to this side a little bit. All right, so to add more depth to this, I'm going to click on the hue saturation adjustment, and I'm going to crank this up. So what I'm going to do is to click on this icon to apply it to just only the title. So I'm going to just move this out like so, and you can even change the position of the image, and I'm going to drag this and drop here like so. Okay, and I'm going to scale this down. Let's show this somewhere around here. So if I hit Ctrl H on my keyboard, we have this. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial, and if you have not subscribed, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any of my video, and remember to ring the bell. Okay, so I'll see you guys again in the next one. Peace.